Hello and welcome back to Siege.co's The Probe. This particular episode of The Probe, we have the following objectives. The first one is that you should be able to know the importance of the lead, and that you should also be familiar with the different types of leads. And then you should be also familiar to, you should also be capable of identifying different types of leads and construct different types of leads by yourself. Then you should be ultimately be able to write good and interesting novelty leads. Ayan. So this is Sir CJ and I hope that you will join me in this episode of The Probe. Okay. So, ayun, we have been through 4 sessions already and I hope that you are you're taking notes dun sa mga pointers na binibigay ko sa iyo in the previous sessions and even for this session because you could just visit them so that you would be para ma-refresh ka of the different things that you need to remember when you are writing news. Yan. Because that is a really important skill a news writer or a campus journalist must have, an appreciation of current events, of news. Ayan. News stories, they have already evolved to meet the different requirements of the day-to-day life as lived by their readers. Newsmen strive to give information in the form most in keeping with the fast tempo of our times. They aim to state their facts accurately, and they aim to state facts quickly and clearly. So let me repeat that, we put emphasis on that. Dapat saktong-sakto, accurate yung pagkakasabi ng facts, mabilis mo siyang nasabi, at malinaw mo siyang nasabi in your story. That is the aim. Okay, that is the aim. So in view of this consideration, it will be actually very difficult to overstate the importance of an opening paragraph or the opening sentence or the lead of a news story. Napaka-importante niya because ayun nga, napaka-fast-paced din ng pagbabasa ng mga readers natin. Always, itong lead na to, ito yung pinaka-primary concern talaga ng isang news story writer. In any form of other literature kasi, the writer tries to put his best foot forward, di ba? Para maging catchy yung first words, yung first scene ng isang novel, kailangan maganda yung pagkakasabi ng mga first scenes through a carefully chosen set of words. Napaka-importante nun. We always have to keep our best foot forward. That is the same for journalistic writing. In journalistic writing, this first stride, yung pinakaunang sentence na isusulat natin, it has a very unique importance. Try mo, read any newspaper today. Tapos makikita mo that just by glancing at the headlines and by reading each lead, you substantially get all important news. Although you may miss some important, some interesting details, pero at least meron ka nakuha mo na yung gist ng news. Diba? Pero yun nga, whether it be run-of-the-mill or outstanding in its impact, the lead should cover the story's most essential facts. And so, ang gagawin natin sa mga sessions na to, we will be covering the main types of leads, summary and novelty leads. Let's begin with the summary leads. So one thing we need to know about summary leads is that they are the briefest possible summary of a news story. So they seek to answer the 5 W's and the H. So again, they are the who, what, where, when, why, and how. Alright, so we're trying to answer 5 W's and H as much as are important lang. So if it's not important or if it is not there, hindi natin siya ipipilit. Okay? Sometimes then we are also including who said so. Okay, in the summary lead. Okay, so we have different types of summary leads. The very first one that we'll be discussing is the who lead. So ang naka-feature sa who lead is yung person na involved dun sa news story, and that person must be well known to the readers of the newspaper na kung saan pinublish yung newspaper. So halimbawa, kung yung principal, famous siya or known siya sa mga readers ng isang school, dapat doon lang yung full lead mo appropriate para sa school mo. Hindi yung principal ng ibang school yung fini-feature mo. Kasi baka hindi naman gaanong known talaga si principal from other schools. O edi hindi gaano effective ang hulid mo. Yung mga prominent teacher, yung mga prominent people sa school mo, such as teachers, gym instructors, ayun, o kaya yung mga, yung mga vendors, actually pwede rin yung mga yun. Kasi, lalo na kung common sila, alam at kilala sila ng mga estudyanteng katulad mo, diba? Pwede mo sila actually, may news lang tungkol sa kanila. You can, if it's interesting, they're known, you can begin by stating their names. Such as in the following examples lang. President Ramos yesterday predicted that with the situation, but that with the solution of the peace and order problem in Mindanao, the time is not far off when the development of the whole country will begin in the south. So the prominence of President Ramos in this lead is emphasized kasi siya yung pinakaunang sinabi, and that makes this lead a who lead. Okay, so during these times kasi, it was still Fidel V. Ramos. He was still our president. Okay, dito sa pagkakapublish ng news na to. So, if you want to, if you are to write your own current examples, you can perhaps identify prominent people such as presidents then, senators then, ganun. Pero if you localize it in the campus, again, pwede yung principal, pwede rin teachers, ganun. And any other prominent person or known person. Yan. So that is the gist of who lead. The second one is the what lead. Ang what lead naman is ang pinaka-importante dyan, the circumstances. What happened? Say for instance, the specter of a crop devastation in several barangays in Nueva Ecija appeared with officials reporting yesterday that the locust infestation in these areas had reached awesome proportions. So, importante na describe natin kung ano yung nangyari, what happened, okay? Kaya, ayan, that makes it to the what lead. Where it happened is not actually as important as what happened. Okay, we can actually just put Nueva Ecija as the first thing we will be mentioning in the lead, but since mas importante yung nangyaring crop devastation na masabi natin yun, mauna natin yun, okay, so we put it first. It makes the lead a what lead. And now, the next one, speaking of the place, the where lead. Okay, so where lead is used when the place is the most important item in the story, such as, say, for instance, where will be the next Miss Universe contest. Okay, so you can say that Manila will be the site of this year's Miss Universe pageant, according to Tourism Secretary Carlos. You could have began with Tourism Secretary Carlos, making it a who lead, but that is actually not as important as mentioning where will the Miss Universe pageant happen this year. So, in mentioning places, make sure that they have that kind of importance. Okay. So next one is kung importante dito ang place, for the when lead, importante naman ang time, ang date. Okay. So when lead is occasionally used when the answer to the question, when will it be, it has been sought eagerly. So tonight, halimbawa, at 7:30, at the PACC, the world-renowned pianist, Jose Contreras, will be presented to the Metro Manila audience. Perhaps that date and the time, tonight at 7:30, is a really important milestone in the history of the Philippines because of the presentation of a pianist named Jose Contreras. Kaya siya yung inuna natin dyan because that is a momentous time. Okay, it's a very important time. Okay, so ayun. There are actually some examples of news stories. I mean, some periods, some times. By saying times kasi, when we say 9/11, diba, we immediately know ano yung ibig sabihin nun. And then when we say naman July 4th, we immediately know what is the meaning of that. Also, may mga sadly, pero may mga bombings na nangyari at such supposedly very festive time, like Christmas time. And then, ayun, ganun yung nangyari. So, those are when something happens at a very unique or different, siguro let's just use the word weird kind of time, or a very parang coincidental point in time, you can actually use a when lead. It's going to be very effective. Ayan. So after when, it's followed by how. Okay, so how lead is used often in sports stories. So makinig kayo mga sports writers. Okay, it is used occasionally in stories when the how is very unusual, or kung yung paano nagawa yun is very important. Halimbawa, paano nanalo ang Swift over Hinebra? And so by 118-109, Swift demolished Hinebra's chance for recovery last night in the PBA conference at the Cuneta Astrodome. So yeah, you can mention how a team demolished another team by how much. Okay. So you can actually use this then in other applications. I mean, in other kinds of stories aside from sports stories. And then the how lead is followed by the why lead. So bakit? The why lead is it's obviously going to state a reason. Okay. The reason why something happened. It features why when the cause is the most important point of the story. Not just the reason, pero also the cause for something to happen. Say, for instance, because of heavy school bags, many South Korean school children have uneven shoulders. The effect is said next. Okay, para agad nang masabi kung ano yung importance ba ng pagme-mention ng school bags, ng heavy school bags sa may una. Okay, so this is immediately, this is style of writing that you see here, like putting the why. Okay, let me return. Putting the why, the reason, and putting the reason before putting the cause before the effect. This immediately satisfies the need of the reader for information. Okay, so ayun. This becomes a why lead because of that. Okay, so yeah, nakita nyo na. Tapos na tayo sa mga summary leads. Let's now move to the novelty leads. Okay, so a novelty lead, they are unconventional kinds of leads. Okay, di sila mga plain na types of leads. They are usually written because they can enhance the readability of the newspaper. Okay, tapos they also add vigor, they also add kulay or color to writing. Also, these kinds of leads, they make stories very interesting. And in some points, at some levels, then they are very challenging to write. So they challenge the ability of the writer. Ang isang writer na nasusubok yung ability niya ng pagsulat ng mga novelty leads. Okay, so although hindi naman laging pwedeng gumamit ng novelty leads, bale there are times na hindi mo sila pwedeng gamitin. And you know that you can use them when you have some facts that are not entirely straight news. Pwede kang gumamit ng novelty leads. Also, you can use them when you have some facts that may be much more interesting by a novel way of presenting them. Yung napaka-unique na way of presenting them. Sayang naman kasi kung naisip mo na ipapresent mo siya in this kind of way para mas striking siya, para mas matandaan siya, para mas maging interesting yung news story, tapos di mo ginawa, di ba? So, when you have that chance, when you have that thought, na it will become more interesting, more striking, more parang curiosity, more mind-boggling. Yun. Use a novelty lead. Use any kind of novelty lead we will be discussing. Also, you can use novelty leads when the use of it seems very natural. Hindi mo siya ipipilit. Okay? And it's so appropriate. You just use a novelty lead in a way that you don't even have to put more force to it. Hindi mo na siya pwede pang ipilit because They are just going to make the story interesting, unrestrained. And then also you use a novelty lead when the purpose of your lead is to arouse the reader's interest. Okay, not to satisfy it. Dun sa summary leads, halos ganun yung ginagawa natin. We are satisfying their curiosity, we're giving them information. But when it comes to novelty leads, your aim is to arouse their interest. I-arouse mo lang yung interest ng reader mo. Huwag mong kaagad sinasatisfy. Okay? So that is the gist for novelty leads. So the first type that we will be talking about are the punch or astonisher leads. Okay, so a punch or astonisher lead consists of usually a short, snappy sentence set off in the paragraph by itself with the summary of other facts in the second paragraph or in the third paragraph. Pwede yun. Okay, so it is also used when you have that one fact that is extremely important or is very startling. Say, for instance, you can begin writing your news about a woman who was apparently distraught over her lived-in partner's refusal to marry her. And, who killed herself yesterday, as it was said in this news, by drinking insecticide in their apartment in May Kawayan, Bulacan. You can begin that parang summary lead by mentioning something like lived in love ends in death. This is the punch or astonisher lead. This is very startling. This has that kick, that wow, no, not really wow effect, that X factor that makes the reader want to know what is the meaning of this. Okay, it is curiosity. It causes curiosity. I mean, it arouses curiosity from the part of the reader. And lived in love ends in death. What exactly happened, right? So you can come up with these kinds of punch or astonisher leads for your news stories. Okay, the second type of novelty lead. Okay, it's a background lead. Now, a background lead is napaka obvious. You're going to describe an event in which a background, yung pinaka-background niya is overshadowing the individuals who are direct participants in it. Usually, ginagamit ito in describing the events ng isang carnival, ng isang dance, or ng isang gymnasium exhibition. Pwede rin ng mga music festivals, pwede rin mga homecoming events. Okay, so you can use a background lead. Now, an example of this, you can write like cackling witches, screaming apparitions, and violent drum beats are just a few of the spine-tingling sounds echoing through the halls after school hours these days as the cast and crew members of Macbeth go through their rehearsal routines. You can use that. You can, if your school's choir is practicing, you can also describe the background. Okay, so you can describe what is being heard. Yun. Okay, so that is a background lead. A descriptive lead is quite different because what it is describing is a person, a place, or an event. And it is usually comprised of only a few words that can vividly describe an image, a scene in the reader's mind. So an example of this is a swathe of awesome darkness fell on this ancient city of 5.8 million people Friday as the sun disappeared behind the moon, creating the first solar eclipse here in more than 400 years. Diba? Napaka short lang ng mga first parts in description before siya nagbigay ng mga facts like 5.8 million people Friday. And the thing about the eclipse, the description of the eclipse. Napaka-short lang ng binigay yung description, pero it was capable of giving us this vivid description that this city, this ancient city, was swathed in, it was covered by an awesome darkness, diba? Ayun. So that is a descriptive lead. So next one is an exclamatory lead. So as it suggests, okay, it is comprised of a short exclamatory sentence frequently set off in a paragraph by itself. Okay, so again, When I say frequently set off in a paragraph by itself, it is just that it is this one-liner. Okay? Parang tinimbang, ngunit kulang. Ayun. Pwede mong, yan. That is a sentence set off in a paragraph by itself. Tapos meron na siyang konting description pa sa next. Tulad ng bawa nito. A Filipino Pope has been elected. Ayan. So, bells pealed for more than 1 hour throughout the country to announce that a native son was recently chosen as the 268th successor to the throne of Saint Peter in the Vatican. You begin that with an exclamatory lead. A Filipino Pope has been elected. Diba? Napaka-shouty niya sa mind ng reader mo. So, aim for that. Aim for that. So, next one is a direct quotation lead. Okay? As it implies, direct quotation. Okay, so, in this example, best wishes on your voyage to your nuptial joy forever. Ginamit niya yung direct words ni President Ramos. Okay, so, a direct quotation lead is used when what is said is more striking or important than the person who made the statement. Yeah, it's important to mention President Ramos saying these words to Lloyd Sammartino and Joe Ramos's wedding, but it's more important to mention the kind of words that he said. Okay, so best wishes on your voyage to your nuptial joy forever. Yan. Okay, so next one is a question lead. Napaka-common, no? Question. If it is comprised of a question, usually set off in a paragraph by itself. Now, when do we use it? We use it only when the question is the cruise of the story. So, halimbawa, is it another Japanese invasion? Prospects for more Japanese investments in the Philippines are now better with introduction of basic structural reforms and the government's efforts to stabilize the peace and order condition, a Japanese businessman said yesterday. So, may konting reference din dyan. We were invaded by Japan before, right? You remember that? In history. Okay, so merong konting reference sa history. Okay, that's actually given. Pero when you ask a question in the question lead, this is the tip. Make sure it is the kind of question that people will find rhetorical, okay? And people's interests or curiosity is going to be aroused. It's a question that people care for. It's a question that the readers would like to be answered. Okay, they're curious about ano yung sagot dun sa question na yun. So when you formulate your questions for the question lead, think of what questions will interest you if you are the reader. So yeah, that is one thing that I teach my writers. Think of what your readers will feel. Think of what you would like to read as a reader. Given that you have been writing and reading a lot lately, in our trainings, they have been reading and writing a lot. What kinds of stories would they like to write about? Again, so to read about, what kinds of stories would they like to read about? That's the kind of stories they must write about. Ayun. Although that style does not always apply, okay? Kasi may mga topics na hindi naman talagang nakaka-interest for a lot of people. So, yun. So, let's have the few actually. Okay, next is a contrast lead. A contrast lead is, it must be sharp and it must be vivid to point out the opposites and also the extremes. A contrast. Bale, you put two very opposite things in one statement, such as the United States being the richest nation on earth, pero having some 25 million Americans living in poverty. So the richness of the nation, the poorness of some 25 million Americans, those are really, those are two extremes. They are contrasting. When you're doing a contrast lead, when you're writing a contrast lead, you have to make sure that the way you're presenting it, the contrast is sharp and vivid, and you're presenting opposites. If not opposites, the extremes. Okay. Okay, so actually, if they're supposed to be opposites pala at all times, okay, and they have to be extreme opposites. Ayun. All right. So next is literary, historical, or mythological allusion lead. Now, this is quite actually may pagka-feature siya ng konti. Okay, pero um you can use it too for use stories. Pero may pagka-feature siya ng konti. Okay, so a literary, historical, or mythological allusion lead consists frequently of a quotation, pwede yun, or a reference to a literary, historical, or mythological character. So doon nagkaiba sila ng quotation lead. Kasi quotation lead, it was actually said by a person recently. It was very, very important to mention what she, or they said. So an example of this literary, historical, and mythological allusion lead is the following. So when Miss Maricel Santos, a music supervisor, gets to heaven, she will be one step ahead of most other people, for she already knows how to play the harp. Right, so playing the harp really fluently, playing the harp eloquently, playing the harp with that level of expertise. That is the kind of talent that you will only see among the angels na na-mention sa Bible. Okay, so yeah, so that is the reference used in this mythological allusion lead. Okay. Ayun. So we actually mentioned almost 8 novelty leads already. Let us now move on to the last 4. The 9th one is the parody lead. It is comprised of most frequently of a parody of a well-known song, poem, quotation, book, or movie title. Example of this is Money, Money Everywhere and Every Cent Well Spent. Ito yung tune down ng DBM, Department of Budget Management, as it prepared this year's financial statement. Okay, so you can use these kinds of parang sing-song references and make a parody out of them. Ayan. And then the 10th one is the atmosphere lead. The atmosphere lead is comprised of a group of words or phrases that help portray the setting or the mood for the reader. Okay, so it is used only when the setting or the mood of an event is interesting or it's very significant. So, for example, UN oil, arms, and financial embargo against Haiti went into force Tuesday with the US warships steaming near the shores of the Caribbean nation to stop any violators. Unlike the background lead that set the background in the beginning, the atmosphere lead is setting it the whole time, and it is really using all of the resources it has, all of the facts it has, and adds some more to them so that yung atmosphere mas maliwanag. Okay, the tense atmosphere in this example is very evident. Ayan. And then the 11th novelty lead is the suspended interest lead. This consists usually of several sentences in which the reader's interest is intensified as he continues to read. Ito talagang ginagamit usually sa mga news feature or mga feature stories na talagang kailangan i-print ng buo. Okay, hindi sila pwedeng i-cut. Hindi talaga sa pwedeng i-cut. Because they need to preserve their mystery value until the very last words. So an example of this, the air is charged with excitement. The audience is tense. A slight rustle of expectation can be noted behind the deep red curtain. Music is heard, and the curtain rises majestically, revealing a beautiful and realistic set and leading actors. Actors who walk, talk, love, and fight, but are only 8 inches tall. Okay, so that is the kind of story that was being told by this particular feature. Okay, so hindi siya pwedeng i-cut at any point. Hindi siya, kasi that has to continue na yan. Okay, so kung i-cut yan, how can we preserve, how can we preserve the mystery? How can we preserve the interest of the reader if we are going to cut it? And how are we going to satisfy it if the end is going to be removed? Okay, so usually ginagamit na suspended interest lead sa mga news features, sa mga feature stories. And then the last type of novelty lead is the direct appeal lead. Okay, so a direct appeal lead is it uses tawag doon, the personal parang it's this kind of personal interaction between the writer and the reader. It borrows the interest compelling device of the personal letter. It makes the reader a direct collaborator, okay, by using the pronoun you in addressing the reader. So it often begins with such phrases such as, if you have ever thought, or if you have ever seen or heard, such as in the following. If you think you got it tough when you have listened to your little sister practice the piano, or you have to take pity on Christopher Martin de Jesus. In the last 10 years, he's had to audition 10,000 child performers. Napakadami nun. And he likes the job. Ayan. So, ayan. I think it's clear, right? Instead of just saying like Christopher Martin de Jesus has like auditioned 10,000 child performers in his last 10 years of career, like, and he likes the job. Instead of just saying that, you can include something that will involve the reader. Okay, so if you think you got it tough when you have listened to your little sister practice the piano, so the writer is assuming that the reader has a little sister. Okay, the writer doesn't really care if the reader does have a little sister or wala. Basta gusto niya ilagay dyan is kung meron ka, kung meron kang little sister at kung nagpa-practice siya ng piano, imagine mo na lang yung struggle niya doon. Imagine kung paano siya paulit-ulit na nagpa-practice ng piano. That kind of suffering. So it is involving the reader in the story in a way na he finds really connected to the actual news story that he is about to say. This is actually much this is like something, a direct appeal lead na nandito sa example na to. It is actually something that I think is best used for a news feature, or that is about a person named Christopher Martin de Jesus. Oh, actually, if you're gonna ask me, if you're going to write a character sketch or a personality sketch, this is the kind of lead that may work, especially if they have that kind of job, that kind of vocation. Ayan. So, itong business na to, no? It makes even, actually, yung pagsusulat ng lead, it makes even the most experienced, the most veteran journalist pause. Totoo yan. Talagang kahit na napakatagal mo na nagsusulat, mapapa-pause ka pa rin, mapapahinto ka lang pa rin for a while to think about how will you make this news story very interesting. Ayan. So when ikaw na writer, when you're covering a story, you are carrying the back of your mind yung consciousness ng kung ano yung the best na beginning story para sa kino-cover mo. You have to keep a watch of that element, that special element of how are you going to write a good lead? What is the best lead? What's the best lead na pwede mong isulat for this kind of story kaya? The kind of lead that will arouse the interest of your readers, that will make them read more. Yeah. You have to keep that at the back of your mind when you are covering a story. And you also have to practice writing so many different kinds of leads para medyo masanay ka na rin. Ayun. So yun, this is the probe. And I hope that in this episode, you were able to, you were provided ideas on how to begin your news stories. And even actually in different kinds of journalistic writing pa. Like, how do you begin your editorial? How will you begin your feature story? how will you begin your sports news, and your development communication news. It is just that these leads, you can use them, especially mga novelty leads, in many different kinds of journalistic writing, and even sa ibang mga types of writing, like yung mga nasa creative writing category na, you can still apply them. This has been Sir CJ, and I hope that you learned something about campus journalism in this edition of The Probe. Have a good day.